So if you guys follow my spam account on TikTok, you may know that I have my driver's permit. I've also recently completed my 50 required hours of drive time, chunks of which involve freeway driving, which makes me wonder, when did freeways and the interstate system become a thing? That's what we'll be looking at in today's episode of LIAMS Random Introspectives. But before we get started, this is just a quick disclaimer that this is a semi-serious podcast that looks way too far into random topics using factual and scientific information mixed with opinion for the purpose of both comedy and education. As such, certain points may be over-exaggerated for comedic effect, and I highly recommend people do their own research into the topics discussed in this series. Anyways, the place is Berlin and the year is 1913. Germany built a small speedway outside their capital city. One World War later, Germany would complete the first full segment in 1932, running from Cologne to Bonn. Then, in 1933, a certain someone would turn the Autobahn into a national project, and when World War II eventually rolled around, it was used for military logistics. So, in 1945, when the Allies were invading towards Berlin, U.S. General Dwight D. Eisenhower noticed how fast the American army could move through Germany utilizing the Autobahn. And as it just so happens, General Eisenhower would later be elected as the POTUS in 1953. And 3 years into his first term, he would sign the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956. This act would designate $25 billion to build 41,000 miles of high-speed highways. The first projects would break ground in Missouri and Kansas. However, these wouldn't technically be America's first highways. In 1941, the city of Highland Park, Michigan, a close suburb of Detroit, proposed converting one of the city's major streets, Davison Avenue, into a 6-lane highway, which would pass through Highland Park and into Detroit, alleviating traffic in the city's neighborhoods. The freeway would bring the amount of time needed to travel across both ends of Highland Park down from 15 minutes to 3 minutes. The first freeway under the interstate designation, however, would be I-70 in Missouri. The freeway spans 250 miles from Kansas City to St. Louis. The next big interstates would be a big one, I-80, which would eventually extend for 2,900 miles from San Francisco, California to Teaneck, New Jersey, and began construction in the late 1950s. This would be the first of a few nationwide interstate highways, with I-10 being constructed between Santa Monica, California and Jacksonville, Florida, and I-75 between Miami, Florida and Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. I-5, which would run between the Mexican border in California and the Canadian border in Washington. By the 1980s, the interstate system would be nearly complete, with I-70's completion in 1992 widely being considered the ultimate completion of the interstate system. So now the federal and state governments would turn their focus towards making interstate highways more efficient. One of these additions would be HOV lanes, which are accessible to vehicles with carpooling passengers. The goal of encouraging carpooling would be to reduce traffic and be more environmentally friendly. Another modern feature of freeways are noise barriers, usually taking the form of large brick or concrete walls that separate freeways from neighborhoods, hence reducing noise. The 2000s is when states first started playing around with electric tolling. The idea of a pay-by-plate system is that instead of having to stop at a toll booth while on the freeway, you instead pass under traffic cameras that scan your license plate and mail you the bill. In 2021, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act was passed, which allocated $1.2 trillion to be spent on highways, bridges, and other infrastructure. And that's where we are today. The funds approved in 2021 are still being used to repair critical infrastructure, much of which is focused on the interstate system. For example, repairing rural highways that normally get less attention due to limited traffic. But that's it for now. Over the next 30 years, plans involving the interstate system involve significantly investing in rural and tribal freeway and highway infrastructure. Thank you guys for watching. This episode was personally very interesting for me to make, but I'll see you guys in the next episode of Liam's Random Introspectives.